I ordered this capacitor from Lazada. This is the original size. Lazada is not a component supplier, and when you're buying components from Lazada, so you don't know what you're gonna get. These are used capacitors, mainly because there's already solder on the leads. And the thing too is when you're ordering parts, you don't know the size. You kind of guess what the size is going to be. Also the important thing is the leads, pin-to-pin spacing, size, leads. Yeah, buying components from Lazada, it's not an official component supplier of electronic components. So you won't know what you're gonna get until you actually see them in front of you and say, oh, okay. So when I opened the package, I thought, too big. So I'll have to check whether it'll fit into the circuit board. Yeah, the component diameter is too large. The silk, the circular white is the silk layer, and so I placed them, and looked like the spacing component spacing for these recently arrived capacitors. I wouldn't call them new. It would be a misnomer. New capacitor? No. Recently arrived, yes. So I'll install this too, and then what you call remedy, or place the capacitor in such a way that it will be in there. So buying components from Lazada is like a box of chocolates. You don't know what you're gonna get. Forrest Gump. Okay, the pads are cleaned. Remove the solder that was present there. I had to use this iron. It's really crappy iron. When I first came here to the Philippines, I really needed an iron, and I've forgotten that I had this, and I had to remember that I actually have a very hot iron. I wish I remembered. So this is less than 200 peso. Quite frankly, it's not well made. The tip corrodes. No temperature control. It just gets hot. The tip begins to turn blue hot, which is really bad for the iron tip. It'll just begin to degrade rapidly. So that's the reason why I hardly use it. This is a Haku 936 50 watt max, and the tip is not hot enough to do this type of work. When the copper trays are this wide or thick, they become heat sink, and you really need a hot rapid iron to liquefy the solder. So I am going to place the capacitor and see what. Well, the capacitor is too big. I can't place the third one in the middle, which I suspected is going to be a problem. This being the original, it would have been okay. So it appears that I will have to buy a different capacitor size. which means spending some time in Lazada looking for the proper size. I can still use this the way it is with two capacitors, so 680 times 2, so it's around 1200 microfarad, 1300, which is not ideal. It was asking for 2000 microfarad. It could be glitchy when it's welding. Well, I am going to use it with two 680 microfarads, so I'm changing the design. In theory it should work. It actually should work with one, but the ripple would be with one capacitor, the ripple would be high. With two, the ripple would be reduced. With three, whatever the design criteria was would be. Because I really didn't know what I was gonna get. Well, I'll have to order another capacitor with the correct size, but I can use it now. So I'm gonna power it up and see what happens. Okay, it's all put together. So I've already tested it. So I'm just gonna quickly demonstrate the welding. So there are two installed capacitor, 680 times 2, so around 1300 microfarad. The ripple would be a little high. Let's see, the consequences are a couple maybe. Ripple high. What else? Ripple high. Inrush current would be for each for individual capacitor would be the same. So the impact will be just the ripple. I don't believe there is any impact to its ability to weld. So let's see here. Oh, gotta turn it on first. Right. So it's set at 84 amps. And okay. Okay, yeah, that shocked me a little bit. Kind of hard to it's kind of hard to control with the camera on my left and the weld holder in my right, so it's gonna it's a little bit hot. Yep, it's working. That's it. So failure mode, the welder was stripping the fuse, 16 amp fuse at the fuse panel. Typically here in the Philippines, and it doesn't mean to demean or anything like that, it's just the way it is. It's just that there is a main fuse in a household. They have one main fuse panel, which is 30 or 60 amps, and that's it. All of the wirings are then derived from that single panel, and you could potentially suck in 60 amp or less than 60, and if there was a short, the line would get hot and burn. So if this welder wasn't protected with 16 amp, basically it would the circuit board would just burn. The circuit board would act as the fuse. So I told the guys that they should always have a fuse so that if the 16 amp is stripped, then it means that there's a problem with the welder, and I could then diagnose the failure mode of the welder. So in this case, because they were welding at the warehouse or the barn, the fuse was stripped. I wasn't told later until I witnessed that they were planning to use the welder, and they just kept tripping the fuse. And so so I said, wait a minute, there's something wrong with the welder. And so I start to diagnose the failure mode. So basically, capacitors, they if the welder is like used quite a bit, the inrush current to the capacitor will boil the electrolyte. It would then create a condition where the high voltage would spark a gap toward the other side of the plate of the capacitor, and will just create a short and then trips the fuse. Now, also I've seen on YouTube, because I went briefly on YouTube to check other portable welder. I didn't see anything about capacitors, but I did see a lot of thyristor, where the thyristor leads becomes the fuse. So it tells me that they didn't fuse it with 16 amps. They just allow the thyristor leads to be the fuse. It's the way it is. It's not ideal, but it's just the way it is here. Yeah. Anyway, I hope anybody's watching this that says, well, I should protect the portable welder with some sort of a fuse. So my only advice is, don't fuse it with 20 amps. It's kind of useless. The circuit board would be the fuse if it's like 20 amps or more. Actually 16 amp would be ideal for this kind of welder. I mean, you're not sucking more than, say, 3700 watts. That's less than 20 amps here. So anyway, good luck.